Hey everybody, this is going to be a quick review on Chapter 1 of the ServSafe textbook. If you haven't gone through Chapter 1 quite yet, make sure that you complete the Chapter 1 readings and the Apply Your Knowledge activities within the chapter before you watch this review video. So these are the main objectives of Chapter 1. Chapter 1 sort of sets the stage for the competencies that we'll address in the later chapters of the ServSafe textbook. So we're going to take a look at each of these objectives, first being what is a foodborne illness and what is a foodborne illness outbreak. So remember that a foodborne illness is any illness that's transmitted to people by food. So this can look like in someone eats something that has been overtaken by bacteria, that person eats that food and they become sick, and what can happen then is that person can transmit that foodborne illness to other people through the fecal oral route by touching something or touching food during food prep and infecting others. A foodborne illness outbreak is established as an outbreak when 2 or more people have the same symptoms after eating the same food. And this is going to be determined by an investigation that's coordinated by local regulatory authorities. So this would be like our local health department. So someone may call that restaurant and say, hey, I'm sick after eating this specific meal. And the restaurant is required to notify regulatory authorities if they've received those types of phone calls. Number 2 is what are TCS and ready-to-eat foods? So TCS stands for Time Temperature Control for Safety. So these foods require control of time and control of temperature to keep that food safe. Ready-to-eat foods are those that are ready to eat, that can be eaten without further preparation, washing, or cooking. So pathogens and bacteria can grow easily in both TCS and ready-to-eat foods if we aren't controlling for time, temperature, as well as personal hygiene and cross-contamination as well. Objective number 3 asks, what are the 5 factors for foodborne illnesses? 5 risk factors. So we know that these 5 circumstances can greatly increase the risk for foodborne illnesses. So those are purchasing food from unsafe sources, failing to cook food correctly to the correct temperature, holding food at incorrect temperatures. So once it's cooked and say you're serving it on a buffet line or something similar, we have to hold it at the correct temperature. Using contaminated equipment, so this looks at how we are washing and sanitizing any equipment that we use, as well as practicing poor personal hygiene. So our later chapters are going to go into more depth regarding these 5 risk factors and how we can modify those risk factors to reduce the incidence of foodborne illness. Number 4 asks, which populations have a higher risk for foodborne illness? This includes preschool-age children, the elderly, and immunocompromised individuals. Preschool-age children are in this category because their immune systems have not fully developed and thus are not as strong. The elderly, on the other hand, are seeing typically a decline in their immune function, and on top of this, they tend to have more comorbidities or pre-existing conditions that may affect their ability to fight off a foodborne illness. Immunocompromised individuals include patients who are hospitalized with some type of illness, maybe an individual who has cancer, HIV or AIDS, liver disease. There are several disease conditions that can cause for someone's immune system to be compromised. So these are specifically individuals who are at greater risk of contracting a foodborne illness. So any facility that is serving these populations needs to have stricter measures in place to reduce the risk of foodborne illness. Objective number 5 asks, how can you help to keep food safe in your operation? Again, these are points that we are going to look at further in the following chapters, but these include controlling time and temperature, preventing cross-contamination, practicing good personal hygiene, purchasing from approved reputable suppliers, cleaning and sanitizing items correctly, and training staff making corrective actions when you notice that your staff is doing something incorrectly, and retraining staff periodically to make sure that they understand the food safety rules and how to apply them in their current jobs. So you'll see that these kind of relate to the risk factors for foodborne illnesses. So if we can control these and meet these standards, then we can help to keep food safe in our own operations. The final objective is, what role do government agencies have in keeping food safe? So there are several government agencies involved in preventing foodborne illnesses and tracking them. The FDA issues what's called the Food Code, and that can help to guide the requirements that are put in place by state and local regulatory agencies. So the FDA, USDA, and our local regulatory agencies help to regulate food service operations by providing permits and licensing. So think about permits to serve food, permits to serve alcohol, those types of things. And finally, when a foodborne illness outbreak is suspected, the CDC and the PHS will conduct investigations into these to determine what might be the cause. So think about on a larger scale, if we have an issue with, say, spinach or lettuce, and maybe E. coli has been contaminated with those greens, the CDC will do investigation to try to determine the source of that outbreak. They'll also do research in discovering what may increase the risk of foodborne illnesses. So what we know about time and temperature abuse and cross-contamination and those types of things, we have learned through research by the CDC and the PHS. So that was just a short recap of Chapter 1. Be sure that you complete all of the Apply Your Knowledge tasks throughout the chapters. Those really help to apply the information that you learn. And then complete the chapter review case study and study questions. If you have any questions, please email me at allison.gobert@nichols.edu, or you can shoot me a message on Moodle as well.